Hello and welcome to this video of a Ford Fiesta Mark 7 on a 10 plate. We're going to do front discs and pads on it. Mother-in-law's car, past the MOT. It just got an advisory on the pads being low, so I'm going to change pads and discs. You'll need a few basic tools if you're going to do this at home. A ratchet, a couple of sockets, you'll need a 17mm I think for the wheels, and a 12 and a 15mm for the bolts on the actual carrier and the caliper itself. Decent wire brush, a couple of files, safety glasses, and a dust mask preferably as well if you're making a lot of dust. Bit of Loctite for the bolts. You will need, well, this is an option really. You can use a caliper rewind tool, or if you've got a big pair of adjustable grips, you can use them to push the piston back in. You'll also need a bit of blue roll, some brake disc cleaner or some thinners, whichever you've got, torque wrench, breaker bar, and I think copper grease or brake grease if you're going to use that sort of stuff. Pretty straightforward job. I'll explain it in really simple terms and what I'm doing, and hopefully someone out there that's got a little bit of an idea about cars but don't want to do the brakes just yet on a Fiesta or similar car, because they're all pretty much the same sort of thing on front brakes anyway nowadays on sort of hatchbacks and what have you. Hopefully someone can have a go at it and save some money. Really easy to do, but I wouldn't say, if you've never picked up a ratchet before, don't go into this, because brakes are obviously pretty critical to your safety. If you don't know what you're doing, no idea about it, don't attempt it. If you do it at your own risk. And as well, if you don't have a torque wrench, I wouldn't attempt it, because you need things to be tightened correctly as per manufacturer's instructions. If you're going to just swing on stuff, you're either going to break it, over tighten it, stretch it, and it'll break eventually when you've gone down the road, or you're not going to do it tight enough. And with brakes and wheels, it's pretty crucial to run properly. So I'll go through it all step by step. Hopefully it's of some benefit to you, and I'll try and show you some little hints and tips that I picked up along the way. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is, I've got some gloves on because brakes are quite messy. We're going to pull wheel trim off, and the first thing we need to do is get the wheel nuts off. So actually a 19mm for your wheel nuts, and when you've got the car in the air like this, people are going to start thinking, oh, let's put the car back on the floor, let's get some grip in these wheels. I've never been shown that way when I trained. I was always shown when you've got a car off the ground and you need to get wheel nuts off, you do it by basically swinging down as if you're going to tighten it, but stop, and the leverage of the wheel will loosen the nut, and I've never had one not do it. So I'll show you it right quick. So bring it up to the top, do a good swing down, and you will hear it eventually click, and you can see now that is loosening it. So normally it goes with a bit of a crack, but I've had these off about 3 weeks ago when I changed the ball joints, and they were torqued up properly. And the torque setting for these wheel nuts are 110 Nm on the steel wheels. I don't know what they are on alloy wheels, you'd have to check in the Haynes manual. And that's another good point, if you are doing this for the first time, or you've never done brakes before and you just want to have a go at it, get yourself a Haynes manual. It'll tell you everything you need to know about doing it, step-by-step procedure. But sometimes it helps see a video. You sort of know what you're looking for and what you need. So, like I said, that's how I was showing to take wheel nuts off. If you imagine you've got your car on the ground and you're loosening wheel nuts, even by a fraction, you're putting stress on them bolts like that. So them bolts at the bottom are trying to pull out, and you can damage threads and all sorts of stuff. So that's why I was always trying to do it like this. I have got an impact gun, but that's at home. I'm at the mother-in-law's house doing this, so I'm not going to bring a compressor down here and start doing all that sort of stuff. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way, but as well it's good for you to see, because most home gamers out there haven't got a compressor or impact tools, but you can pick these sort of things up, breaker bars and some decent sockets pretty cheap. So wheels off, we've got 2 bolts here. We've got 2 bolts at the back holding the carrier, which is this bit here, on. And what we need to do is just loosen the actual caliper off first. Took that out of the way. I forgot on my cable ties, I don't have a cable tie up there, so I'm going to balance it on here. So we'll take that off, get it out of the way, take the carrier off, and then we can take the disc off, change the disc, clean all this up, and then, you know, get it all greased up and good to go. First thing I'd do before you take anything off, because obviously it's still quite nice and tight on there, get your wire brush, give all this a right good clean down, because brakes are better when they're clean. You won't get much squeal after you've cleaned them all. So there's no point watching me clean these calipers down. Right, so you don't want to get it. Well, if you want to get it spotless, you can do. And if you want to paint it, now's your best time. All you want to do is take all the sort of loose brake dust, any bits of corrosion you've got on there, just take it off and get it back to a sort of clean state where, you know, things like run off on your hands and what have you. I should have said as well, if you're going to do this at home and it's your first time, get yourself a decent jack and always use axle stands under something that's structural. Just don't use scissor jacks. Scissor jacks are horrible. The amount of cars that I've seen fall over on them, and you know, you think you've got it somewhere safe and stable, but just don't use them. For the sake of like 30 quid at Alfred's, you can go and get a jack and you can get a pair of axle stands for like 10 quid. Will do the job, and it's safer. Please don't use scissor jacks. They are horrible, horrible things. So we've got it all cleaned down a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to get these bolts off. Now, like I said, it's the same sort of setup for most cars. Obviously, bolts and sizes differ. These are normally either a Torx bolt or an Allen key bolt. So just make sure before you go rushing into things that you actually know what sort of tools you need. Halfords do a pretty good tool set, and I'm not sponsored by Halfords, but I find their tools really, really good. They do break, you know, it's not like a snap-on tool. The difference is with a snap-on tool, you've got to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for a rep to come round and exchange it, whereas Halfords, you can walk into a shop and they will give you a new tool over the counter in the advanced range, and it's not too dear. And like I say, you can get them sets pretty cheap. So them two bolts are undone, so this should now lift off. And there we go. So this is normally where you'd cable tie it or bungee cord it up there. I ain't got any of that at the minute with me, so I'm just going to tuck it up there and just make sure that I don't bang around too much. At this point, you should be able to take your actual pads out and have a look at them. You may find it easier to just take your actual carrier off, which there's shims and all sorts in these, so I'm just going to take the carrier off and then we'll get the ripped out. So go into my 415mm socket. These ones are normally quite a bit tighter, so let's get in the way a sec. So that's them two cracked off. As well, you could probably get away with spanners doing it on this car. Some cars you've got to use a socket. Some cars will use a long socket, like them ones. Some will use just a standard type of socket like that. Depends really, all depends. So we'll just get these bolts out now. So I mentioned your torque specs for your wheel nuts, it's 110 Newton meters. These big bolts that I've just taken out the back out of the carrier to the hub, they are, I believe, 70 Newton meters, and the smaller ones, which are only teeny tiny, which go onto your carrier, onto your sliders, which are these here, they are 27 Newton meters on this model of car. Obviously, cars differ, so make sure you check in a Haynes manual or whatever you need to do to find them specs. This will just lift off, so we can have a look at this disc. It's a little bit scarred, it's got a bit of a lip on it, so we'll change that. You might as well do white out all in bits. Plus, your new pads will bed in a lot better onto a new disc. It's all nice and flat, whereas this one's a little bit grooved and lipped. So we'll change that. Straight away I can see something that I can't stand seeing is that someone's put copper grease onto a disc. I was always taught at college not to do that, not to put any copper grease onto a mating surface, because in your copper grease there's little tiny bits of copper, hence copper grease. And what happens when you tighten something onto that, you can tighten it up fully, but then when you go around the corner you apply more torque to that actual piece of metal, you can actually in effect crush them copper bits, and you could end up with a loose wheel nut. It's probably extreme, to be honest with you, probably a bit of an old wives' tale, but I've never done it, never had to. Your wheel won't get stuck on, your disc is very rare to get stuck on, and if it does, you can always use your BFH, which is a big flipping hammer. So that's all off, so we'll clean all that up on that mating surface there, make sure that's nice and clean for his new disc to mate to, make sure there's no grease, because if you've got anything on there, you'll get run out on your disc. It'll go like that every time it goes round. You'll wear your disc out faster, you'll wear your pads out faster, and you won't be able to use your brakes and you'll get brake judder. So we'll make sure that's nice and clean. Again, we'll clean up this so you can see there the pads are pretty low. These should just pop out like that. Not a problem. And this is the time when you go to your box of parts and you check that you've got the right bits. So bear with me a minute. Right, so first we'll check our pads to make sure they're the right ones. This is where I look an idiot because they're not. So hold the back metal plates together like that. Make sure that everything lines up, they're all the same width all the way around. So the back's alright. We know the pads are going to be good from that. And then just as a comparison for you, that's what they were, that's what the new ones are. So pretty worn, not as worn, I've had them down to bare metal before, and that does knack your discs. So make sure you change them. Then we'll check the disc. Now you'll notice some discs will come in a bag, and the amount of grease in there and oil just to keep it from rusting. I mean, it's obviously it's good for stop it rusting, but it really doesn't come off. So that's why I say get some brake cleaner or some thinners, get it all off. I've run out of brake cleaner, so I'm using thinners and some blue wheel. And then what we'll do is we'll just hold these next to each other on something that makes them, gets them the same height, which they are. And we'll just make sure that the actual face lines up okay, which it does, and all the studs look to be in the right place as well. Stud holes, shall I say. So we know that the discs and the pads that have been given are correct. So we'll get stuff cleaned up, and then we can crack on with actually fitting them, which is pretty straightforward, to be fair. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to put my new disc. It should hold in place. If it falls on the floor, I'll just give it a quick clean again, but it should be alright. And sometimes you'll find, like on this disc, there is a little smaller hole there. That's normally for just holding it on the actual hub when you change it, so there'll be a little screw that goes in there. You just need to get that out. It can sometimes be an absolute pain to get out, which I think, to be honest with you, is why some cars don't put it on anymore, because it is an absolute pain to get out. So a bit of blue roll all the way around the disc, everything you just touch with your mucky hands, get it all nice and clean, and most importantly, get the oil off. And like I say, a bit of brake clean, a bit of thinners, something with some acetone in it will get rid of all that. I suppose if you're really at a bind, if you've got a partner or yourself even that paints the nails, you could use a bit of nail polish remover, but that's the same stuff in it really. Kind of, is it? I don't know. So normally with your brake cleaner it'll dry off. This stuff will do. I'm just going to get a bit of a helping hand, get it nice and clean. And again, I'm not putting any copper grease on any mating surface. If you want to do that, you can do that, but I was always taught at college not to do that, so I won't be doing that. So that's on. Now I come to the Couriers. Now these have got little shims on them. Now what they are is called Anti-Rattle Clips. So if you've got them, it's best to change them for new ones if you can get hold of them. Some brake kits come with them, some don't. But they all need a good clean up anyway. Normally 9 times out of 10 they'll clean up fine, as long as your car's not excessively old. They'll be fine. They'll clean up, and then you can put some copper grease on them anyway, so they'll be fine. So I'll get them out. Give everything a good clean on the inside. This is probably why you don't wear a white shirt to do this, to be honest with you. But here we are. And then if you've got a bit of compressed air, you can just blow all this off. If you've got a drill, I'd recommend getting a wire wheel attachment for it, or even on a grinder if you want to make loads of noise. Just makes it faster. Like I say, you could be here all night and all day getting all the muck on, dust and corrosion off these, but you don't really need to. The main bits you want to keep clean are the actual mating surfaces. Now, I always give it all a good sort of wipe down, and not wipe down, a good wire brush just to get all the loose stuff off. But your main bits are anything that mates to something else or has something sliding inside it. So that's why you need to make sure that them bits inside there where your shims go are clean, and you need to make sure that your shims are clean. So that's okay for that one. Just clean these shims up a bit. Make sure they're nice and clean, because that'll be when you get your brake squeal a couple of years down the line. If you don't clean it, you'll get brake squeal. And that's a normal thing as well, by the way, to have a bit of squeaking brake. I don't mean there's something, well, a screeching brake, there's something wrong with it, because you've done that of bare metal. But a bit of a squeal every now and again when you're stopping, it's normally just not a bit of dust got in there or something, and it's not to be alarmed about. You can strip everything down and clean it all again, and that squeal will go away. Normally it goes away on its own, but it's up to you. So we get that nice and clean. So any surface where your pads are going to meet, just make sure they're nice and clean. If you need to get in there with your file, and just make sure it's all, you know, pretty spotless, pretty flat. Your brakes will run a bit truer. So that's fine. So now what we need to do is we need to push that piston back, and that's where, like I say, you can either use your, I mean these are pretty cheap anyway, this is a really cheap one, this was about 10 quid if that. So you can either use one of them, or just a pair of big grips. So, but the first thing we need to do, open the bonnet up and take your fluid reservoir cap off for your braking system. Just make sure that you've got enough room in there, because it's going to push it up. So we'll just check that now. If we need to take some out, we'll just syringe some out. So the reason we'll take the cap off of the reservoir is when you push that back, obviously it's hydraulics, them hydraulics will eventually lock up. So that's why you're best off doing that really. And I'm just going to push this piston back now. I think I'm just going to do it the way that I've always done it, with a big pair of grips, if they'll fit. So yeah, big pair of grips, and just be careful you don't damage the piston surface. Just gently tease it back. Don't start whacking anything, or you know, it's just going to end up in carnage. So just gently tease it back. Don't damage the dust cover. Just keep it on the metal, and you will eventually push it back so it stops. Which is right about there. No? Okay. So that's fully back now. Just check that reservoir, make sure it's not overflowing. I will have to get some out when I do the other side. That is what it is. And we'll just get my wire brush and get in that bit there. Look. Let's give that bit of wire down. Right, so ready for reassembly. What we'll do, we'll get all this greased up first. Just make sure them bits are clean on the insides there, like I mentioned. We'll get this greased up with a bit of copper grease, and like I said, you can get sort of special brake grease. I've just always used copper grease, and I've got the big tub of it, so that's what I'm going to use. The brake grease is supposed to be pretty good, but again, that's just what I use. I've always used it, and I'm happy using it, and I've had no issues with it, so that's what I'll be using. So a bit of copper grease in there. We'll put our shims back in. Just make sure you're doing this the right way. Obviously, if you're doing a different car, just do it one side at a time. If you get stuck, you can always refer back to the other side, or take pictures. There's loads of stuff you can do just to remember it, but these are all identical on both sides. So they're back in now. A bit of copper grease on the insides of them, just to help new pads bed in. And that's why I use copper grease, because I mentioned it's got little particles of copper in it. It actually helps the pads to sort of bed in a little bit. It's a bit like when you're lapping valves in an engine, you want a little bit of abrasiveness there. Just check that your sliders work. If you have a different design where you've got the Allen key bolts on the inside and it'll be on like a little dust cover, just pull them out, make sure they're nice and, they'll come out anyway, but make sure they're nice and clean, nice and greased up. Don't use copper grease for that bit, get a grease for that one. But they're all nice, you can see them moving freely, so that's all good. We'll take our pads, and sometimes you'll have a little sort of spring on there that goes inside your piston. These ones don't. So what we need to do first is just figure out what's going where. So on the inside is going to go on your piston, so you want to grease up basically a little ring there, around there, where your piston's going to hit the face of it, and just on these little corner bits here, just put a bit of grease all around them. On your outside bit, it's going to be met by these two prongs, just here. So that's what's going to keep it squeezed. They're the bits that you want to grease up on that bit, on obviously your pad, but do the shape. Don't blather it all in grease, because all that will happen is you'll just get like that one. You can see it's the ring there from the inside of the piston, that's nice and clean. And because I've blathered it all in grease, it's all just literally stuck over there. So we'll get them done. See that? So that is ready to go into my slider and my carrier, and that one will go in this side. That one in. And just do a couple of lines down. Like on the outside. And there's a bit much on there for that one really. There you go, so something like that. Make sure that you're putting these the right way around. Obviously, the material bit wants to touch your disc. You may laugh if you've done this before, but people still do put the metal side against the metal disc, and then they bring it into a garage and wonder why the discs aren't working or the pads aren't working, they're just installed, and that's why, because you've probably put it on the wrong way around. Sounds really simple, guys, and if you've done this before, sorry for teaching you to suck eggs, but this is aimed at beginners that have never done it before. Just make sure that your pads are the right way around. Okay. So we'll get this back in place now. need to do first. With these bolts, for normally put a little bit of Loctite on them, so that's why I mentioned about the Loctite. So we'll just put a couple of drops on it. You don't have to blather it because you're going to annoy the next person that comes to change them. Just a little squeeze on there, and that'll just help them seal up. You really don't need much on there. So like I said, 70 Newton meters on a Mark 7 Fiesta. It's 70 Newton meters for the 1.2 car. We'll just nip them up for now. We won't go massively tight with them because we'll have to get our torque wrench out soon and just make sure they're the right spec. You know, I'd recommend getting a torque wrench if you're going to do any work to cars. So you can get them for like sort of 20-30 quid. And just make sure that it's in calibration as well. So just nip them up just to basically put it in place. Push your pads against your disc because you're going to need as much room as what you can get. And now it's time to put this back on. So again, on these little bolts, a little bit of Loctite. Only a tiny bit on these if they are small, because you're going to snap bolts, or the next person is just going to come and do it. And he will not like you, or she will not like you. So we've pushed our piston all the way back in, everything's cleaned up, we can get that sat on there now, stood on nice and easily. And now it's time to get our caliper to carrier bolts put in. And these were 27 Newton meters, so these would snap dead easy really if you're going to start cranking on stuff, so just make sure that you've got a torque wrench. So I'll put that in place. And by torquing things up, that's that pretty much done. So I'm just going to grab my torque wrench, get these bits torqued up, and then we'll get the wheel back on. Right, so they're all torqued up. I've checked that the disc moves nice and freely. At that point, go into your car, press the brake pedal quite a few times. You will feel it fall straight to the floor because it's taking up the slack. Once you've done that, you know that your brakes are working. Whatever you do, do the job, forget to press your pedal, put your wheel back on and try and test drive it, because the first time you press your brakes, you'll have nothing there and you will keep on going. So I'll make sure that you go into the car, you press your brake pedal and everything's working. So it's all nice and true. You will feel a bit of resistance on it. I haven't yet pressed the brake pedal. That's why it's flopping around a little bit. So wheel back on. Obviously, double check everything, what you're doing. You may as well, just show you quickly, you may as well have a little spring clip that goes around here, just to stop any rattling. Make sure you've put that spring clip back on, it's nice and clean, it's not bent or corroded or anything like that. But for this model of car, it doesn't actually have that. So these ones are nice and easy. You need a few basic tools, and just this video, really, because it's a pretty good video. So like I say, I'd encourage anyone to get out there and get some, some decent tools or whatever. Have a go at doing it. It's really isn't difficult. You're taking off just take it off bit by bit. Remember how it goes back together. Take a picture if you need to. Consult your Haynes manual or an owner's manual or something that you've got. Take it nice and slow. Don't rush it, because the second you start rushing it, you're going to get some issues with, well, you could get some issues anyway. So just make sure everything's nice and clean, nice and greased, nice and tight, nice and torqued. And then make sure before you go anywhere at all, you press that brake pedal a few times. Make sure you've got some brakes. Don't go zooming off down the street after you've pressed it, thinking, oh yeah, they'll work fine, because it's not a given. What you've just done to your car, you may have got wrong. So make sure that you are checking things. When you go for your test drive, go nice and slow. Okay? So, when it comes to torquing up your wheel nuts, when it comes to tightening them as well, opposites. So don't do them in a circle, do them that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. If you've got a 5-spoke wheel, again, opposites. Go to your furthest one and work as a star. It's a lot easier to do this if you've got a little bit of resistance on the actual tyre. You can normally just hold it, so you can see that I'm doing opposites, making sure that everything's tight and your torque wrench is clicking. And that's it done. So I'll get this back on the ground, give the wheel nuts a final torch, make sure that everything's right. I won't go more than it is, I'll just make sure everything is right. We'll get back on the ground, get the wheel trim back on, press that brake pedal, and then, well, I'm going to do it the other side, but that could be you done. So, hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope you understand how braking systems sort of work, how to service them. Like I say, pads and discs is one of the easiest things you can do on a car, but don't rush into it. If you've never done it before, or you've never held a tool before, just research it, get a Haynes manual, follow it to a T, don't deviate from it. Have a look at my video and see how you get on. All the best. Thank you. So, I hope you liked the video. One last thing that I wanted to mention, well, a couple of things actually. Obviously, if you're working on your own car and you're not qualified or whatever you're doing, that's at your own risk. I've shown you the way that I do it, the way that I was trained to do it. There's loads of different ways that I do things out there. Mine might not be the best, but mine gets me by. I've never had any issues, so that's the way I do it. And I was, like I say, I was trained to do it that way. But I don't accept any responsibility for anything that happens to your car if you're working on it. So if you snap a bolt, or if your brakes don't work, or whatever, you do so at your own risk. A word of warning: if you're working on older cars, they can contain asbestos in the brakes. So if you're working on old cars that have like been a barn find, be wary. You could have asbestos in the actual pads or the shoes, probably what you'll find on older cars. So a way around it is to spray everything with brake cleaner. Anything that you're going to get, you know, where dust's going to come off, spray it with brake cleaner, and it'll eliminate any dust getting into the air and getting into your lungs and causing all sorts of diseases. And it works on new cars. You know, with dust, if you spray it with some brake cleaner, it'll make all that dust all clumpy, and it won't get into your lungs anyway. So probably best to spray it with, to be fair. After you've done the brakes, don't be tempted to go and see how fast you can go and slam on and see how good your brakes are, because there's a good chance that they may not be as good as what you think. Even though everything's new, you've got to give it about 30 to 50 miles for them pads to bed in and them discs to bed in. So for the next sort of 30 to 50 miles, try and avoid where you can harsh braking. Try and go nice and slow. Take your time with them. They will bed in and they will start to feel better as you use them. As well, bear in mind that your brake pedal will feel slightly different as to where it was before, because obviously you've got more thickness of pad now and disc, so you will find that your brake pedal's a bit higher to the top. So just don't be, you know, jumping on your brakes, and then you will go for a windscreen. So yeah, what I was saying there is just take it steady, and you know, that's about it. I'd encourage anyone to have a go at it. If you feel confident in doing it, then do so. If you've done it before, then you know, this is probably a good bit of advice. You know, some of the ways I do it, you might be different to what you do it, and you might think, well, I like that idea. If anyone's got any questions or anything about anything, just drop it in the comments below. I try to answer to everyone that that leaves a comment. Please like and subscribe. Please share it if you feel like it's useful to anyone. I don't know if there's any videos on Mark 7 Fiesta brakes out there, but hopefully someone might stumble across this and think, oh yeah, it's quite useful, it's quite good, it's quite easy to follow, it's quite idiot proof, and they might have a go at it. But like I say, it's at your own risk. If you're not trained, you do so at your own risk. So next episode coming up for me is going to be classic mini restoration, and it's going to be outer sill finished. Going to finish it, and hopefully we're going to get onto the cross member and get that repaired and welded in. Then it just leaves the rear bin, which will be for another episode if we run out of time. That'll hopefully be this weekend. If it isn't, then I apologise. It'll be the next weekend. That's about it from me. Again, I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you like and subscribe and ring that bell and all sorts of stuff that goes with YouTube and everyone always says. Yeah, all the best. Hope it goes well. Good luck and take your time. See ya.